Colossians 3:18 through 22. Wives, submit to your husbands, as is fitting for those who belong to the Lord. Husbands, love your wives and never treat them harshly. Children, always obey your parents, for this pleases the Lord. Fathers, do not aggravate your children, or they will become discouraged. Slaves, obey your earthly masters in everything you do. Try to please them all the time, not just when they are watching. Serve them sincerely because of your reverent fear of the Lord. Paul is giving us here instructions for how to run our households as Christians. And it's really important to understand here that he is telling us that the way we lead our households, the way we lead is by serving one another through love, which is exactly how Jesus led and served and led his life by example. He laid down his life to serve others and to love others. So I know that some of these verses may be a little controversial, especially when we talk about submission. No one likes that word. No one is comfortable with that word submission. I'm not comfortable with it. But we have to understand here that in the context that Paul is writing, he's writing to the Romans. He's writing to the Roman households. And in that time, Roman households were led by the oldest living male of the household, and they exercised really strict authority, almost like ownership. The households and the people in it were considered their property. So it's important to understand the context that Paul is writing here. We also have to remember that Paul's writing this from prison. So he's not telling us to bow down and submit as he's sitting in a place of authority or sitting on a throne. He's telling us this as his rights were completely stripped away. He lived his life in submission to God and in submission to others, laying down his life for others. So once we give our lives to Christ, once we become believers, we no longer belong to ourselves. Our lives no longer belong to us. They belong to him. God is our master. He's our overseer. And so everything that we do, we live our lives unto him. He takes care of us and he's responsible for us. Paul's been criticized by these verses because some say that he may be condoning slavery or condoning gender inequality, and that is not true. It is absolutely not true. He's implying that if we lived our lives like this, our households would be transformed. Even though he's not directly tackling these social issues, he's implying that our lives should be so transformed by the gospel that all of our relationships look different. Like, think about it. What would my relationships look like? Husbands and wives, children and parents, bosses and employees. What would our relationships look like if we really heeded this and really followed Paul's words here? So the question that we have to ask ourselves is, what do the closest relationships in my life look like? Do they reflect the love of Jesus? Do they reflect me serving and submitting myself to them to show them that I love them? This is leadership. Leadership is serving. Our relationship should be completely changed and transformed because of the redefining love of Christ. So do we want to lead people and love them and lead them to Christ? This is how we do it. Not by controlling, not by leading and ruling with an iron fist, but by surrendering our lives and submitting to one another and loving each other with the love of Jesus. This is how we lead in Jesus' upside-down kingdom. We submit, we serve, and we love. We get to go first.